So the Gemara brought a right from an interesting case about someone who wanted to make harama. Somebody was standing in a goyren, and he didn't want to give the extra 20% when he was being poida his own Ma'aser Sheni. So the Baraisa gave a method to be makne his payers for a little bit to his friend, and then he would be poida the payers while they didn't belong to him. So this whole shaila of harama, it actually opens up a whole big sugya. I just want to touch on it a little bit because it's a little bit negayat in Yom Yoma. There's a shaila in the Rishonim when you are allowed to do harama. Harama sounds like a loophole, like a way to get out of doing what you're supposed to. So when is that appropriate? So really, when you're selling chametz, that's also a shtickle harama. So there are those who say that you're only allowed to do harama to avoid an issa d'Rabbanan, but not an issa d'Oraisa. So then they ask, chametz is a mamash an issa d'Oraisa, by Yerabah Yimotzei. So, and there we see a lot of sell chametz. So there are those who learn that even if you sell your chametz, you have to be mevatel your chametz as well. Once you're mevatel your chametz, then there's only a shayla of d'Rabbanan, and there you're allowed to sell it. There are others who hold that if the aram is a proper sale, like in fact, the mechira tagoy is, they make a whole bunch of different kinyonim to make sure that it's foolproof when they sell it to a goy. We just do the chalipin with the rav to give him power of attorney. But if it's interesting to see, if you want to see the actual kinyan, if you come Matzah Pesach, right down into the rav's office, and this year it won't be in the rav's office because the rav probably can't go downstairs, the actual goy that he sold the chametz to comes back. And they do a whole series of kinyonim, that are done just to make sure that it's foolproof. So there are those who learn that you're allowed to do harama when it's not called harama if everything's perfect and you have proper kinyanim. But there's a lot of talk about it, and they bring rise from this Gemara regarding the shaila of harama. The other shaila that they have over here that we were in a rush yesterday, so we didn't cover, was can you use a borrowed item for the chalipin? So the question over here is when the Gemara ended up saying it's speaking about a guy who doesn't have any clothing. And since he doesn't have any clothing, he has nothing with which to make the kinyan. There are those who learn that Avada he had clothing, but they weren't his own clothing. They were borrowed clothing. And you cannot use borrowed clothing to make the kinyan chalipin. And there's actually a machlokes about it. If you're allowed to use borrowed clothing to make the kinyan chalipin. So, sometimes when you're by a chasana and the rabbi, by making the Siddur Kedushin, is making this kinyonim, picking things up, I wonder, I'm sure Shama Rabbi Makpah to say, first I'm kohen this pen, right? So let's say it's the Tumah Chatam. First you be kohen this pen, then you give it to him so he could pick it up to make the chalipin. But if you just give him a pen and it's not his pen, there are those who hold that wouldn't work. Okay, so that takes us to where we left off, which is V'chein Omar Ula, which is halfway down the Omid on Daf Mem Vav Amid. V'chein Omar Ula as well, Ein Matbeya Nasa Chalipin. So he's going back to address the machlokes that we had on Mem Hema Beis between Rav and Levi, if Matbeya Oisha Chalipin, and Ula agrees that Ein Matbeya Nasa Chalipin. Okay, Gewaltig. As Rashi says, Hai v'chein la'ilkoi aplukta de Rav Levi. V'chein Amar Rabasi, ein matbeya nasa chalipin. Rabasi as well said that with a coin you can't make chalipin. V'chein Amar Rabba bar chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ein matbeya nasa chalipin. So we have a whole roster of titans who say that you cannot make a chalipin with a matbeya. We already learned that you cannot make a chalipin with a matbeya, you cannot be kohen a matbeya with chalipin either. So Rab Abba is going to challenge Ula. We have an employer who's a little bit behind on his payments to his shipping companies and his employees, and they're costing him in the public market, in the public square. We want money. We want to be paid. He's panicking. So he needs to come up with money right away, but he doesn't have any cash on him. He tells the Shulchani, do me a favor. Tain li bedinner mois, give me a dinner's worth of copper, of prutois, and then I'll be able to distribute to my employees wages right here, right now. But the same. How will I pay you back? Vani ala yafa dinner utresis, which Rashi teaches according to the Havamin of the Gemara, and I will give you back a beautiful dinner, and even a little bit extra, mimoy sheyesh li bebesi, from the money that I have in my house. Now that sounds like ribbis. You're going to give me a dinner's worth of frutois, and I'm going to give you back more. If he actually has this money and it's in existence in his home, mutter, it will be mutter, and it wouldn't be considered ribbis. Why would it not be considered ribbis? Zokt Rashi, im yeshlo bevesa, the second wide line. Oisan mois, if he has the money that he was talking about, that he's planning to pay back the shulchani with, then mutter. Why would it be mutter? The chivin the yeshloi, since he has that money here, you know what's occurring? Not a loan. An actual chalipin is occurring. It's like a regular sale. Havalu chalipin. We look at it like it was a kinyan chalipin. Tehechlef elu be'elu. The copper coins that he took from the vendor, from the shulchani, is a chalipin for the shulchani to be kinda the money that he has at home. He's going to be he's swapping out the coins that he has in his home with the coins that the shulchani is giving him. Umakmas doicher, since he's squeezed because he needs to pay his employees right away, oizol gabe, he's willing to pay a premium to buy these prutos of nechoshes now from this shulchani. Losses like trisas yoiser, he's willing to pay more. You're allowed to buy something and overpay for it if you're desperate for it. That's not ribbis. Ribbis is paying money for the use of someone else's money. But that's not happening here. Therefore, I'm not paying you for the time of which I'm using your money, because we're doing an exchange instantaneously. You're not waiting to be koine your money for a moment. You are instantly being koine of the money that I have at home. The moment the balabayis was moishach the nechoshes that he got from the shulchani, nikna loy hadinner shebebeisoi b'chol mokem shahu. The dinner zov that this homeowner has at home instantaneously becomes the possession, the property of the shulchan. So there's no ribbis here. But v'imlav, if he doesn't have that money, meaning it's a loan, then this will be also, this is ribbis. As Rashi says, v'imlav also, even the ein loy hadinner bebeisoi, since he doesn't have that money, ain't kan chalipin. There's no chalipin. Elakashar mecher ba'oma. It's like a regular sale that I'm buying on credit. Shahum is chayav loyat hinu loysh's man. Utresis moisav loy b'schar moisav shimton. And I'm paying you an extra tresis, an extra small amount to pay the interest for the time that I'm having your money. So that's mamish a case of ribbis. Break the Gemara. If you cannot be koina, nor use a matbeya to be koina, using the kinyan chalipin, well then, even if you have the money at home, it doesn't help. Because there's no kinyan happening right at the time. So ultimately, you took his copper, he didn't get your money. You're giving it to him later, and you're paying a premium. That is ribbis. It was such a good kasha that Ishtik, Ula was quiet. Ula was silent. Amalei, he told him. Now, I don't know who the Amalei is. Is that Amalei Ula responded after he had a moment to think it over? Or does it mean Rab Abba answered his own question? Does the article say what that means? Oh, Ula said. So that means Ula was quiet, and then Ula thought it over, and then Ula responded. Dilma idi v'idi v'prutato. You're making an assumption that what was exchanging hands here was actually coins, was actually currency. That's not correct. Maybe each party only had little blank coins of copper that were never really coins. So all you have here is payra, and this is payra b'payra. The lekalayutiva, they don't even have a stamp of a coin. They're merely nuggets of copper. And the edi pair have, and both are only pairs. And maybe that's why they're nikna b'chalipin. Amalei. So after Ula suggested this, Rab Abba said, you know what, Ula, you're right. Amalei, you're right. Dekonami. It's actually muchach minei ubei in this brisa that's the case. Because it's, what does it say? What does the Balabai say? I'm going to give you back to the Shochani. I'm going to give you back Yafa dinner utriseha. Yafa dinner means I'm going to give you the value of a dinner and a little bit extra. V'loikatoni dinner Yafa utriseha. What he should have said if he was actually giving him a coin was, I'm going to give you a beautiful dinner, not the value of a dinner. So Shema Mina, in fact, that what was exchanging hands here was Shava Kesef, was product. It was a barter of product, which does work for Chalipin and was not a barter of currency. Shema Mina, Gewaltig. Zok Rashi b'prutatais, it's moish shonachoshes, little pieces of copper, shemadayin beloy tsur. They don't yet have the stamp, kenasimon shokas, just like a blank coin. So he says that's correct, because when it says Yafa dinner, it's mashma that it's not an actual dinner, it's product that's worth a dinner. Gewaltig. Gewaltig. Zok to more weiter. Rabbi Ashi Omar la'olam b'dom. We're speaking about money, so we're back to the kasha. I ein matbeya nasa chalipin. Zok to Gemara ube prutatos. It's speaking with prutatos, which means they are actually yafa dinner. So let's have a look. But Kivan the Islay, in other words, he still agrees that he was receiving nechoshes that were not coins, but at home he has money. But we say Kivan the Islay, since he has it at home, Nasika Omer, it's as if he said Halveni Achiyavi Bini Oyachem Samafteach. If you remember, we learned that there's an isser to lend saw b'saw. However, if when I borrow the saw, I actually have the saw that I'm going to repay you with, I just don't have the key to the cabinet, that's allowed. So here it's speaking, he had it at home, and therefore it's as if he said that I have it, and it's a case of saw b'saw, but he has it at home. Let's get some more insight into what happened over here, because there's some problems. Like we said, so I will agree with you, that's the Metzias. We're swapping not actual coins. But it doesn't necessarily have to be because of a kinyan chalipin. I'll agree with you on the facts, because you had your dekonami, that we were talking about getting shava kesef, blank copper coins. But you don't need a kinyan chalipin to solve this problem. Shafilu, his ne'imai b'tayers domim, even if it was not a kinyan chalipin, it was a purchase. I was going to be koina your prutois with Mashiach, which would trigger a chiyah for me to pay you back, there still wouldn't be a problem of ribbis. Ain't kind ribbis. The agronotally. Agronotally means just the payment, the schar for waiting for your money, which is basically the schar for the use of your money. Shafilu halva, even if it was a real halva, if he has with what to pay back in his home at the time that he borrows the money, mutter losses if he's allowed to give more, the havalei, it's like alveni achiyav. When I saw this Rashi, I was completely flabbergasted, because if based on what we remember, what is the heter of if I have it in my possession? The heter is saw b'saw. I borrowed from you a 5-pound bag of flour. I'm allowed to give you back a 5-pound bag of flour if I have that 5-pound bag of flour when I borrowed it, because we look at it like it was a swap. It doesn't look like rubies. But I'm not allowed to give you back a 6-pound bag of flour. That for sure you're not allowed to do. And here he's giving him the extra, what's the word for that? Trise? He's giving him extra. So how can you justify this saw b'saw based on the fact that I had it? That's only if it's saw b'saw. But here I'm paying you back more than what you lent me. So for that, we have to go into Tosfos. Zok Tahelika Tosfos. Nasa Kaimerloi. So I'm in the last Tosfos that are in the thin lines. Nasa Kaimerloi Helveni Ad Shiyavai B'ni Oyacha Emtza Mafteach. V'im Taimer Frek Tosfos. Nhi Deshari Saw B'Saw B'Ad Shiyavai B'ni. So b'sosayim kiyacha, when you're actually paying back more than you borrowed. Shenosloi trisis yoiser. That's also Vavribus Gomer. How can you possibly justify this just because I have it here? Here, I'm not giving you back the exact same matbah that I took. I took from you some copper coins. I might be giving you back a silver coin. I'm giving you something else. It does look like it's a purchase and a sale. And this is what the Gemara means to say. Just like a saw b'saw, paying you back the same amount when I'm structuring this deal to look like it's a halva, you're lending me flour, and I'm going to lend it back to you. And that works, and the Rabbanan are not geyser. Why? Mishum the saw b'saw is only ribis the Rabbanan. Hachanami in the case of derech mekach memkar, which it doesn't even look like halva, so it's even further removed from the gezeira derabbanan. There, afilu sabis hasayim muter boimat shavibini. The Tosfos is saying that the Gemara is saying a massive chiddush that since this was done derech mekach memkar, it doesn't look like a transaction of a borrowing. It's a transaction of a sale because I'm buying from you copper. I'm going to pay you back with a check. I'm going to pay you back with a different denomination. There, even though Lamaisa, you're waiting for your money, they're not going to be geyser, and you're going to be allowed to pay even more because derech memkar does not look like ribis. It's a very big chiddush, and that's what Tosfos speaks it out, because otherwise the Gemara would be very difficult to understand. Okay, so the Gemara weiter. Tashma. This is a Mishnah in Kedushin. And the Havamina of what this means is anything that's used as payment to buy something, which is basically matbeis, currency. Anything that's a currency, when the seller is zoiche in the money, in the payment, the purchaser will get what he's getting in exchange. What does it mean? The words, something that becomes money through something else. Means it's not a bacher, you use it to pay for something else. That means the matbeya is being used for kinyan chalipin here. So you once again you have a pure raya, clear raya. That matbeya is nasa chalipin. Rav Yehuda, kol nasa dam bacher is not referring to the coin. It's referring to the product. Rav Yehuda Hachikamar, turning on top of base. Anything that is assessed as to what its value should be and what you should pay for it, meaning any product, non-matbeya. There we say, kivin shezoch nischayiv zeh b'chalipin. That's very good. It's payer b'payer. Hachadami mistavra. Besides this kasha, anyway, it's mistaber to say that that's what the Mishnah means with kol hanishim dam ba'acher. Midikatani seifa, because the seifa clarifies this halacha with an example. And what is the example? Not someone paying for something with cash, rather, ketzad hichliv shar b'para oichamar b'shar. Clearly, we're swapping merchandise for merchandise. That's where kinyan chalipin applies perfectly. Shemamina. Frek the Gemara. Ulamai de solak adaite meikara. When the Gemara asked the kasha, the Gemara had assumed that kolanishim, what's the lashon of Mishnah? Kol hanasa dam ba'achar means a coin. When the Gemara asked the kasha, the Gemara knew that a moment later in the Mishnah it gave an example of shor b'para. So how is shor b'para an example of paying for something with cash? So that it was a matbeya. So what's the example? My ketzad. The ketzad is talking about swapping an animal for an animal. Yet the Mishnah is talking about a case where you're paying for something with currency. This is how we thought the flow of the Mishnah went. First of all, you can make chalipin. You can make chalipin with a coin, with money, with payment. But in addition to that, uperi nami avdi chalipin. You can also make chalipin with Paris. And here we're talking about the animals. We're using animals as an example. Ketzat hichlib shor b'para, a chamor b'shor. That would be peri of the chalipin. Now, it's just important to note that there's a machlekes rishonim here. It says v'shalaf ish naloi. It has to be the item that you're using for the chalipin has to be similar to a shoe. Because of that, we learned there's a machlekes between your Papa and Nachman whether or not you can use Paris for chalipin, right? The question is, a live animal, is that considered Paris? So from the reading of our Gemara, it's quite clear that it seems like machlub shar b'para or chamar b'shar is considered Paris. Because that's what the Mishnah is giving as an example of uperi nami of the chalipin. But there are those who argue. Tosfos argues, and Tosfos says that the Gersh is different. It's not hichlif shar b'para, it's hichlif basar shar b'para. If you look at the very top line of Tosfos, Tosfos quotes uperi nami of the chalipin kedat hichlif basar shar b'para. Because a live animal is definitely not considered a peri. It's a tool. It can be used to do work. That's not considered peri. It's only a peri if it's meat. Meat is like a peri. All you can do is eat it. And therefore he changes the girsa. So kum to us, we have a machlokes rishonim if a live animal is considered peri or if a live animal is considered a keli. Zok the Gemara, hanichal Rab Sheshes. This works really well according to Rab Sheshes, who holds that you could make a kinyan chalipin with peris. Damar peri of the chalipin. Elul Rab Nachman damar kli in aval peri loy of the chalipin. But according to Rab Nachman, who holds you cannot make chalipin with a peri, he cannot possibly learn the Mishnah's giving of an example of peri of the chalipin because he holds it's not true. So my case said, how is Rab Nachman going to understand the example of the Mishnah? Case at hichlav shar b'para, a chamar b'shar. Payers don't work for chalipin. Zokmar hachik amar. This is how Rab Nachman would understand it. This is not working with Doris chalipin because in fact payers don't make chalipin. And he's going to learn the Mishnah telling you nuchidish. Yesh domim shehenke chalipin. You can have a case of a kinyan of domim that's like chalipin, but it's working in mitar as kinyan kesef. Ketzat hichlif demei shar b'para or demei chamar b'shar. What does that mean? This is the case. I go over to Yankel and say, I have a shar for sale. How much do you want for it? I want $100. So he goes and takes my shar. And now he's mechayiv himself to pay me $100. It's a regular meshicha. There was no kinyan kesef done. He made meshicha on my shar, and now he is mechayiv to pay me $100, a classic case of a sale using meshicha. Now he owes me $100. I tell him, I see you have a donkey. I can use a donkey. How much do you want for your donkey? And he says, I would like $100. I said, really? Well, you owe me $100. How about I take your donkey instead of $100 that you owe me? That will be koine. So that's called domim shehenke chalipin. Because I know that I'm going to be moichel the $100 choiv that he owes me. With that, I'm going to be koine the chamar that he has for sale, and that will work. That will work. So domim shehenke chalipin will work. Well, you might want to ask, well, how does it work? Didn't we just say you cannot be koine with kinyan kesef? So how is it that the fact that I'm moichel the $100 automatically I'm koine your chamar, even though I didn't make a meshicha on your chamar? Didn't we say that you only can be koine things b'meshicha? You can't be koine things b'kesef? So how does this work? Zok to Gemara, my time with Rav Nachman. Why would Rav Nachman say this would work? Because Sover look Rabbi Yochanan. He holds Rabbi Yochanan. And he holds that even though Mois is not koinos, it's not because midaraisa there's no such thing as kinyan kesef. Because then you can't make exceptions. In this case either, how can we say just because I'm moichel $100, I'm going to be koine your chamar without any meshicha? That wouldn't work. But if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan's meikar din, kinyan kesef works on the taltlim. The reason why we don't allow it to work, the reason why the Rabbanan took away that kinyan, is as follows: the Amar Dvar Torah Mois Koines, Meikar Din Mois Koines, Umipnema Amar Mashicha Koina. Why did they say that you will not be koine until you make a mashicha on the object itself? Is because Gzeira Hashem Yomer Lo Nisravu Chitcha B'Aliyah. We discussed this already. The concern is If you pay me the $100,000 for the produce and you don't take delivery of it, if my warehouse goes up in smokes, I'm not going to kill myself to save your wheat. So therefore, we say that you're not kohen something until you actually take delivery of it. That's a gzera. The case that we're discussing, where I bought a shar from you and you owed me $100, and now I'm going to change that $100 into chamor, that's not a typical case, right? It's an unusual case. Since it's only a gzera d'Rabbanan that kinyan kesef doesn't work, by an unusual case, they wouldn't have made that gzera. Umilza de shchicha goes Rabbanan. In a classic case of a kinyan kesef, that's where they disqualified it to say you need Mashiach. But Milzad lo shchicha, in an unusual case, such as the one that we just discussed, lo goes Rabbanan. And that's how it would work. Frek the Gemara, that's really nice if Rav Nachman is going to hold like a Yochanan. But what if we hold like a Rish Lakish? The Amar Mashiach mefureshes min haTorah. According to Rish Lakish, only Mashiach works. Kinyan Kesef doesn't work at all. So how in the world are you going to be able to justify such an unusual type of Kesef occurring? If he holds like Rabsheshes, no problem. Rabsheshes holds that you can make chalipin with peiros. So he'll learn that our Mishnah is speaking about peiros bepeiros. Metaris like Rabsheshes. Elisavik Rab Nachman. Damer peir of the chalipin. Umat peir loikani. You have a Mishnah here that has a case of being machluf a para b'chamor, a para b'shor. How in the world that can work? It can't work with chalipin because Rab Nachman holds peir of the chalipin. It can't work out kesef because kesef doesn't work according to Rish Lakish. So tomorrow you're right. That's not going to be an option for him. Al korach Rabsheshes metaris law. He's not going to be able to learn Rab Nachman. He's going to have to learn like Rabsheshes. The only way he'll be able to explain the Mishnah, the only way Rish Lakish will be able to explain the Mishnah is if he holds like Rabsheshes that holds payers avdi chalip. Tanan. Kol ha-metaltlin koinen zeseh. Any metaltlin you could swap. In other words, kinyan chalipin works on anything that's metaltlin. The Zok Lakish, you know what else is considered metaltlin? Even if we're swapping out bags of money, which really is money, but if it's a bag full of money, that's considered an item, and you could make a kinyan chalipin with that. Zok Rashi. Oops. Va'afilu kis molei mois Zok Rashi. V'al karchach v'chalipin kamer. This must be working with kinyan chalipin because kinyan kesef doesn't work. Libertar is domim mois lakanu. So what do you see from here? Shemami no matbei nasa chalipin v'nikna b'chalipin. Clearly, this is matbei nasa chalipin. If I'm swapping out, you're being koina a bag of my money, and with that, I'm automatically koina the bag of your money. Isn't that a clear case of matbei nasa chalipin? Zok Gemara no. Tigmar avacha v'diner anka v'anigra. Echot shepaslosay malchus ve'echot shepaslosay medina. We have two different types of coins, and they're pasal coins, so they're no longer currency. Let's look at Rashi. Tigmar avacha v'shesteyen mois psulais. They're not currency anymore. Both of these monies are pasal, but for different reasons. Davalei kishar metaltlin. Now they're like any other metaltlin. Once a coin is disqualified, it's no longer legal tender. It's like any other metaltlin. It's just worth its melting value of the content of metal that's in it. Machlav kis mole diner anikoin, the kis mole diner shal nigra. What are these two things? Echad ben paslos hemalchus. One of them is the king. The king decided, I don't like this coin anymore. I don't like the face of it. It's to my ex-wife. I'm not keeping that coin. And the coin, the melech forbade people to use it. Now, people are still going to use it quietly, but it's definitely not going to be used in the banks, and it's going to be used on the black market. But it's still used, but very clandestine. Medina, meaning the people didn't want to use it anymore, but maybe in another Medina, people will use it. So Rashi says, "Hamelach gozer shalo yoitziu, u'b'dei Medina lo yiknois be'etzna." The B'dei Medina still accept this coin, even though the king outlawed it. But even right over here, you can use it in the clandestine faction. The other coin, people don't use here at all. But Shlasa Medina means B'nai Medina Sanu. The B'nai Medina don't accept the coin anymore. But there's no official decree from the king to invalidate this coin. Therefore, in other countries, the king might it might be used. So we have two coins, one that's not good here and the one that's not good elsewhere. So they're like two separate commodities, and therefore you can swap them out. Zok the Gemara, Zok the Gemara. Tigamar Vacha bedin Anka v'Nigra echad shepaslas malchus v'echad shepaslas medina utricha, and you need both these varieties of pasala coins. The Ashminim paslas malchus. If we only have paslas malchus, we shouldn't sagi klal because it's not legal tender at all. Al paslas medina, the sagi le b'medina achriti, where it can be used in a different medina. Ema kati metbeyahu, maybe still a coin. Bein matbeya nikla b'chalipim. If we only had the case of Paslas Medina, in this Medina, you can't use it at all. But if the Malchus passed it, the Sagile B'Tzina, people still use it clandestinely. Maybe it still has the status of currency. So at the end of the day, we still don't have a Kloraraya. If Matbeya is Nasa Chalipin or not, it still remains a Machlokes between Rav and Levi. Zokt Eilu Gemara weiter. Amar Rabba, Amar Afuna, Machar li be'elu kana. Someone asks his friend, I want you to sell me your horse with this for this bundle of money. But he didn't count the money out. So Machar li be'elu, Achaz be'yadim mois, he held in his hands a bundle of cash. Amar lechaver, and he told his friend, Machar li chayfet shalcha be'elu shebe'yadim. Sell me your horse for this bundle of cash that I'm holding in my hand. The owner of the horse didn't ask how much money there is. So we're trying to quantify, is this kinyan kesef or not? Kinyan kesef normally means I'm buying something with an amount that we agreed upon. So that is the question. The lakech will be koina. So this kinyan kesef works. It's going to have to work with Tarish Chalipin because we know kesef is not koina. So let's see how this works. And therefore, if it turns out that I overpaid or underpaid, the halachas of Einah would apply to this sale, to this transaction. Hana, he's kaina afal gav d'loy moshach. Even though there's no mashiach done, even though there's no mashiach done on the object, as long as there was a kinyan done on the mois, the kinyan works. Why? The kivin d'loy kapit, since the seller was not makbid on the amount, therefore kana. Why is that? The key chalipin dummy. It's like chalipin, because by chalipin, what I'm giving you to be koina, so that I can be koina your thing, I'm giving you a handkerchief. It's worth much less. So chalipin works when we're not paying, when the chalipin is not necessarily paying for the object. It's just being used for the kinyan. Here, clearly, the money was just being accepted by Darish Chalipin, because if it was being accepted as payment, he would have wanted to see how much money there was there. So the kivin lakapit kana the chi chalipidam. V'yesh la'alavana. Why is there aina? The machar li be'elu kamer, because it's a sale. The machar li be'elu kamer, that's a sale. If it's a sale, it is subject to the rules of aina. Rabba Amar Abuna machar li be'elu kana. It's kaina. Ve'ein la'alav aina. There is no din aina. Fekmar pshita. It's pashit. It's domim. They makbid alayah. He's paying with money and he's not makbid on it. Zok Rashi, nosan leimois oy chayfetz. If I give you money or I give you an object, b'shvil chayfetz acher, in payment for something else that I want to buy from you, but Torah's domim as a payment, that was the case over here. V'loy hikbid alayah. Clearly, the person wasn't makbid because he didn't care to see how much money there is. Lirais im yeshnan kidei shavyat. So the halacha is, there's no aina, because clearly he wasn't makbid. Pshita daman ben makbid alein. Zok Gemara, but how come rinan the kani the kechalipin dami? But didn't you also say that it's kaina because it's like a kinyan chalipin? So therefore, it's kaina. But even though it's kaina, it's not subject to aina. Zok Gemara chalipin umakbid alein. What if he made chalipin? What if he made chalipin, but he is makbid to make sure that what he's making the chalipin with is of equivalent value? As Rashi says, nosan loy chayfetz bechayfetz, but it was b'toras chalipin liknois kedin kinyan shekoinin besuders. He's trying to make it chalipin. But v'zem makbid liroi sheyeh asuders shavah kol gach. But he wants to make sure that the shmat that he's getting is equivalent in value to what he's giving up. What would Allah be? My so is that a kinyan kesef or is that a kinyan chalipin? Amar Bava Tashma. Hare Shahaya. I'm sorry, I have your phone over here because it was ringing. Sir, I have your phone over here because it was ringing, so I kept on shutting off the ringer. No problem, but I just kept it there just that I can reset it. Oh, it was ringing. It was an alarm. It wasn't a phone.
I apologize.
No problem. No problem. But I just kept it there so that I can reset it. So my Amar Bava Tashma. Haresha Yataifas Parasa. If somebody was holding his para, and so he was with his animal. And his friend stopped by and he said, Parascha Lama. Why is your Lama? Why did you bring your para? Why are you standing here in the public place with your para? So he answers, because Lachamor Anitzar. I actually need to buy a chamar. So I was hoping to find someone who would sell me his chamar if I liquidate my para. So he said, oh, really? What a coincidence. Yes, li chamar. I happen to have a chamar, shani noisenloch, that I could give you. Parascha bekama. How much did you want for your para? Bekach bekach. I wanted $300. Chamarcha bekama. How much were you willing to part with your chamar? Bekach bekach. So, moshach bala chamar es a para. If the bala chamar made a meshicha on the para, for his big bala par limshach es a chamar, but the bala par did not make mashich on the chamar, until the chamar died. Loi kana bala chamar es a par. The bala chamar was not kanya the par. So you see clearly that this kinyan did not work. Shemamina, you see them here. Chalipin umakbid aleim. If we're doing a kinyan chalipin, but each person is makbid that what they're getting is of equivalent value to what they're giving up, is loi kana. So this is a right to the shaila that chalipin umakbid aleim will not work b'toras chalipin.
I understand how this is chavi.
Because you're making a kinyan on my para, and with that, I'm automatically going to be cutting your chamar. So that's chalipin. You're making mashicha on my product, and through that, I'll be cutting your product. There's no cash involved. But you see clearly that it's not koina, and the taka doesn't work out chalipin. Amar Rava, Zok Rava, I don't understand. Every chalipin, you're going to tell me there's no hakpad on value. Atu chalipin b'shuftini askinan. Are you telling me that when the Torah taught us about kinyan chalipin, we're speaking about idiots, the loy kapti who don't care that they're only getting a handkerchief to pay for what would be an expensive object, as Rashi says. Amar Rava, atu chalipin the krab b'shuftini askinan. The loy kapti ladas sheyehushav is ksas damim sheyitav be'enav losses shaloi connectoi. Why would I give you something just because you gave me something that wasn't valuable? Of course, I'm going to want there to be some type of equity here in this exchange. Yet the Torah says it's koina. So you can't say that chalipin umakbid aleyan is going to be not a good kinyan. Elakol chalipin mikbid kapti. Really, in every kinyan chalipin, there is a hakpada that I want to get some value out of what I'm giving you. The kana, and it is koina. So on why in this case with the chamar and the para, why over there didn't the kinyan work? The Amrlei chamar bepara utle. He didn't say I'm going to swap the chamar bepara. I said I'm going to swap my chamar and you're going to give me a para and a tle. And what happened was umashach as a para. One of the two parties was moshach the para, but v'adai le moshach as a tle. So he didn't get. The first party who made the Mashiach didn't make a Mashiach on the full package that he's supposed to receive. That's not a good Mashiach because, yes, Kinyan Chalipin works. Kinyan Chalipin works. If I take whatever you're going to give me, then you're going to whatever I was going to give you. But if I only took part of what you were going to give me, that's not a good Kinyan Chalipin. But Avada Chalipin, where I'm makbid that I should get fair value, that is definitely still considered a Kinyan Chalipin. Okay, we'll stop here, and Be'ez Hashem, we will be mamshech tomorrow. So we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how it works, and it's a little confusing because it's very technical. But I think as we get through the sugi, it'll come out much more clearly.